Good evening, friends, and welcome to another edition of Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace. You know the drill. We're retired New York City police detectives and 9/11 World Trade Center first responders. If you like all things true crime related from the police detective's perspective, you're in the right spot. Hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you get all things DutyRon and this guy, the wizard, Ed Wallace, when we go live or upload another video. Oh, no, he's got rubber gloves on. Tonight, we're going to be talking about Karen Reed, the retrial. It's in day 15. And today, there was the miracle hair and the broken taillight piece. How in the world did that hair, that one little hair and the taillight piece, stick to Karen Reed's car for many, many travels back and forth during a nor'easter? One of the biggest, by the weatherman's testimony and by many, many others who talked about how bad the wind was, where we couldn't set up a tent. We had to get a leaf blower to clear the snow because the conditions were so bad. But the conditions weren't so bad that the one little piece of taillight and one little piece of John O'Keefe's hair stuck to the car. We're going to get into it tonight. Buckle up, because we're about to get into this whole thing. Ed, your thoughts on day 15? Pretty quick.
Okay. Well, so we started off with two troopers that were in the crime scene search unit, or whatever they call themselves, CSS. Okay. And apparently they don't do that much. They go out with civilians from the lab, and the lab people do most of the forensics. And it appears so far that all these CSS troopers, all they do is photographs and latent fingerprints. In this case, they were called out for the hospital. They were called out for the car, and days later, mind you. Okay, for the car being days later. The hospital, they were there to photograph the clothing in the hospital, but they didn't collect anything and rush it to the lab. Then they got called out for the car, and the civilian came out. And so we had testimony from two of the crime scene people, and they one went over to the Albert's house to take long range overall photographs. Okay. Not close-ups, not medium range. Originally that was the task. And then they weren't called out for any of the pieces that Proctor and Sergeant Uri and the late chief of Canton PD found. So they weren't called out to document any of those things. Mm-hmm. Really, for the life of me, I'm just baffled how they do things up there, and how this judge is allowing all this evidence in with no chain of custody. They seem to think that if you label a bag, that's the chain of custody, and that's not the chain of custody. And they seem also to think that if you photograph the bag with the 6 red Solo cups in it, that's chain of custody. Also, now we have a little discrepancy in testimony now, because we had some previous testimony which stated that the civilian crime lab personnel took the Stop and Shop bag with the red cups back to the laboratory. And we learned today she did not. Yeah. She only took 2 swabs, stuck it in 1 cup. And we'll talk about that, because there was a lot of problems with her methodologies, in my opinion, and I'll break it all down.
Right. And you know what, Ed? What I found to be really suspect is that the civilian crime scientist, as she called herself, she examines the
criminals,
right? But scientist too. She examines the T-shirt and the hoodie on 5/11 of 2023, and then the T-shirt on 5/15/2023, and
but she got it on February 1st.
Yeah, 5 days after this the scene, but she waited until a whole year. Before she did any examination. Let's go into a quick.
Is it me, or maybe when they were thinking they were going to get a plea and they didn't have to do all of this work? They were working towards a plea from Karen, and she didn't give them the plea, and now they have to play catch up and do all the work that they should have did in a timely fashion when it was brought into the laboratory.
And we actually saw that on text messages that came out during this trial about them saying if she would have taken a plea, if she takes a plea, it's going to be easy. If she doesn't, it's going to be, what did she say? An episode, right?
Yeah, an episode.
All right, let's listen to the recap real quick from day 15.
Testimony resumed in Karen Reed's murder retrial a day after it was postponed when the defendant suffered an undisclosed illness.
John O'Keefe's niece testified about her uncle's relationship with Reed, while a forensic expert showed the jury evidence from her SUV. NBC 10's John Maroney joining us live from Dedham with the latest.
They're met by Proctor, some other troopers, and then there's also some Canton PD people there. Okay. Now, a full accounting of who all was there has not surfaced, okay?
Right.
And so the trooper from the CSS, he's taking photographs, okay? And there is problems with many of his photographs because he didn't have the proper settings, he wasn't using the flash correctly, and he overexposed that tail light. Okay, but then we got into the what the criminalist 2 did from the lab, and she asked for certain areas to be processed for fingerprints, which I didn't understand the necessity for the fingerprints inside the car and so forth. If John had legal access to the car, which he did because he rode in the car many times with his girlfriend, right? Why would they need fingerprints inside the car? And then I think they did some fingerprint work on the outside. She searched the undercarriage of the vehicle looking for blood, and she tested some things, and there was nothing there. She didn't find any blood on the outside of the car. She found a piece of glass just sitting on top of the rear bumper, just sitting there, not embedded, but just sitting there. Okay. And then she also found a hair. She found some scratches in the vehicle, but she didn't do anything with it. She didn't, besides photograph it. She didn't cut it out. She didn't sample it. She didn't send it to the lab for microscopy. She didn't send it to the lab for any biological, chemical, or any other type of testing on that. She found one hair stuck to the vertical rear section of the right rear section of the vehicle, and she put a scale down next to it, and somehow in between their movements, the hair changed its position between two different photographs. Okay, and she wouldn't acknowledge it. I mean, it was clear as day to the jury, in my opinion, and anybody watching, that it had moved. And all she would have had to say is, yeah, it appears it moved. I don't know how it moved, but it appears to have moved from one position to the other in the two different photographs. And that's, well, goes to me, tells you how fragile the hair is, because it is considered trace transfer evidence, right? And it wasn't glued there, wasn't taped there. It moved between two photographs. Okay. She wouldn't admit that, you know, the glass and the hair took this journey from the Albert's house to John O'Keefe's house, from John O'Keefe's house to Jen McCabe's house, back to John O'Keefe's house, and then later from John O'Keefe's house to her house, and then from her house back to the Canton PD on a flatbed truck. That it was unlikely that that hair or that glass, which had just been sitting there, would have survived this trip and not blown away in a nor'easter and with winds gust, and they gave her the wind gust and all that, but she wouldn't admit to it. Okay, so but she did say, I don't know when it got there, right? So, and the same thing with the damage. She said, I can't tell when the damage occurred. I don't know when the damage occurred. Okay, to the lens. She did something that sent my head into geosync orbit. She did a composite swab of the remaining polycarbonate section of the taillight. That means she took a swab. She put, in her case, she said she put sterile water. We used deionized, but she said she used sterile. And then, so she swabbed one section. Then she used the same swab and went over to another section of that lens, swabbed that. Then she went to a third section, swabbed that. So she made a composite, okay? And that means she could have commingled multiple sets of DNA, okay? And we would never know where the original position on the light that DNA came from. Now, she only did the exterior of the lens. She didn't do the interior of the lens, which she should have taken 3 separate swabs. And then she should have swabbed the interior as well. She didn't do that. Let's see what else.
And people were led to believe that there were 2 pieces of taillight when in fact there really wasn't 2 pieces of taillight. Correct, Ed?
That's
because
right.
There's a couple of people in the chat that were confused about it, and it's easy to get confused.
So if she's going to search the car for hairs and fibers, all right, then she should have brought an alternate light source. Now, this is an alternate light source, and this is let's see, upside down. Oh, it's backwards, but it's UV, okay? And then I can swap out, the various heads that have different colors, and I can use this to try to fluoresce foreign hairs and fibers. Now, when Ron comes back, we'll show you how what a fabric looks like to the naked eye, and then what a fabric looks like with a hair that's fluorescing under UV and using orange goggles. I also have, depending on what frequency of light I'm using, I have all different color goggles so that I can see what's happening here. And she didn't do that. And then later on, when she starts to examine the clothing that were recovered by Proctor and Sergeant Uri from the hospital and allowed to sit on some paper in the Canton PD, in the district attorney's office on the floor there for 6 days before it was rebagged. She didn't do that when she did her examination. She took photographs and she took measurements and she did a sketch of the clothing. She documented the damage, but she didn't search it with a UV light for foreign hairs and fibers. Okay. I guess, there was at no time was she made aware of an alternative hypothesis of an assault at the Alberts house and being bitten by a dog. At no time was she giving that information where maybe that would have caused her to look at that outer article of clothing a little more closely, especially the defects to the arm, the right arm. She packaged the shirt and the hoodie together. She swabbed 3 blood drops on the T-shirt, and I don't know what came of it. She took 2 swabs and stuck it into 1 solo cup, and so 2 swabs went into the same cup with 2 blood samples, and they were never tested. She couldn't articulate why she chose 1 cup and why she didn't sample the other cups, other than the fact that she said she was told that this blood was all found in mass under John O'Keefe's body, okay, which isn't true, all right? She was told to concentrate on that rear corner where the taillight was broken, her examination. How you doing, Ron?
Good. I think I fixed it. I hope I did. Let's keep our fingers crossed. But Ed, I was listening to you the whole time. This is you like gave a sum up of the show in about 10 minutes here, 5 minutes.
Not yet, not even close. There's plenty more to go.
Yeah. So I hate to interrupt you, but I want to try it and see. This is just a quick overview, 2 minutes and 38 seconds, 58 seconds. Let's take a listen and keep our fingers crossed.
Reed's murder retrial a day after it was postponed when the defendant suffered an undisclosed illness.
John O'Keefe's niece testified about her uncle's relationship with Reed, while a forensic expert showed the jury evidence from her SUV. NBC 10's John Maroney joining us live from Dedham with the latest developments. John?
Casey, John O'Keefe was guardian to his late sister's children. They were young, but they did have a front row seat to his relationship with Karen Reed.
All right, Ms. McLaughlin, who is your next witness?
John O'Keefe's family in court as his niece testified about his relationship with Karen Reed. Video and audio recordings were prohibited because of the young girl's age. The jury did see this clip of an interview Reed gave talking about her rocky relationship with O'Keefe. She's pleaded not guilty to hitting her boyfriend with her SUV and leaving him to die in the snow. O'Keefe's niece, now 17, told jurors she heard Reed say on the phone, "Maybe I hit him," and was asked about a trip she and her brother took with a couple to Aruba. She said O'Keefe and Reed had been fighting, and things around the house in Canton weren't great either.
We would have broken up, but probably John would have lost.
In this clip, Reed is speculating about their relationship. Under cross-examination, O'Keefe's niece acknowledged Reed took her to get her hair and nails done, as well as doctor's appointments and sporting events. Her brother testified at the first trial, not this one.
John's niece was on the stand. Any reaction to her testimony?
No comment. I was asked to examine a black Lexus SUV.
A state police crime lab expert walked the jury through some of the evidence. She says she saw scratches and pieces of glass at the rear of Reed's SUV, along with a piece of hair belonging to John O'Keefe based on a DNA analysis.
It wasn't taped.
No.
It wasn't glued. It wasn't stapled.
The defense challenged the findings, saying the SUV traveled from Canton to Dighton and back, questioning how the evidence remained on the back of the vehicle during a blizzard. Reed's father says he drove the SUV to his Dighton home.
It's pretty remarkable, right? The glass traveling as well as the hair. I mean, it's pretty remarkable. So
She didn't do anything extra, but when she was asked if she's ever experienced red Solo cups in a Stop and Shop bag, she gave a real honest answer. And she said, no, never.
Yes, but she did say she made the decision to only sample one of the cups. And for the life of me, I can't figure out how she came to that decision. You know, what she said something of it wasn't of significance. Well, how do you know what is and what isn't of significance at this point in the criminal investigation? Because we're talking February 1st, right? February 1st. And the crime occurred on January 29th, right? So I was kind of taken back by that. And so, okay, maybe she was given some bad information by Proctor as to.
It wasn't February 1st. It was February 3rd, 5 days later. So at least that's what I wrote down from the testimony. She responded to that, the Canton garage on 2/3 of 2022, 5 days later. And then again examines the T-shirt and the hoodie on 5/11 of 2023, a whole year.
I'm not sure about that, Ron. I thought it was just 3 days later. But anyhow, regardless, it was sometime later. But I mean, they had already made up their mind, Proctor and Sergeant Uri. Sergeant Uri kept saying, we will let the evidence speak to us. We were letting the evidence speak to us, and this is the direction it took you. No, you weren't letting the evidence speak to you. The day of the incident, you went and seized that vehicle. You were letting Jen McCabe speak to you. That's who you were listening to, because you weren't listening to the crime scene. You weren't looking at the crime scene. You didn't even process the crime scene, okay? Yeah. You didn't call out the crime scene. You called out the SHRT team, okay? You didn't call the lab. Again, you called out the SHRT team. It should have been all hands on deck. Okay, yeah. So please don't give me that bullshit. You made up your mind after speaking to 3 people. Okay, only one of which was involved. Okay, and then you went after that car and you took that car without a warrant. All right, whatever. But that said, getting back to our criminalist too. She didn't search the car with an alternate light source for more hairs and fibers. Especially now, if there is their theory, they call it a theory, it's a hypothesis, that Mr. O'Keefe was hit by this car, which broke this taillight, you should be searching that whole area for hairs and fibers, more hairs and fibers. And using the alternate light source is the best way to do that. Also, oblique lighting techniques with white light is also a good technique. But that said, then she used tweezers to pick the hairs up. Now, I was never a big proponent of using tweezers, because with the hairs, besides doing mitochondrial DNA, with the hairs, you can also do microscopic analysis of it to determine how the hair was removed from its original source. Was it plucked? Was it cut? Was it pulled some other means, right? So when you use a tweezer and you're squeezing down on that hair or fiber, because at this time they don't know it's a hair or a fiber, right? Because you can't make that call in the field. Only the lab can do that, unless there's some obvious telltale signs of fabric, okay? But when you squeeze down on that hair to collect it with a tweezer, you're putting a tool mark on that hair that can be seen underneath the microscope. Mm-hmm. So I never teach my students to use tweezers to collect hairs. We use tape, okay, to collect hair. Clear tape.
Karen Cole wins the prize. She says, "Would you use tape?"
Yes, Karen. Yes, she's a good student.
Mm-hmm.
Then she picked up the glass, the glass on the bumper with, again, tweezers. The swab, she said she stuck it in two manila envelopes and another paper packaging, and I didn't understand if she allowed it to dry first before she stuck it into those bags. Like, so for our swabs, it dries in the container, so we don't have to like swab something and then just let it sit there until it dries. Right? We don't have to do that because it has a vesicant in here to help dry it out. Okay. That was another thing. And then she got into this whole controversy where she said she had put two scale down. Now, they were using tape scales. There was no evidence numbers. There was no ABFO scale, but she put a tape scale down. Okay, that's fine. But there should have been an evidence number there. But she put B, letter B. So hold on to that. Don't go ahead of that.
I want to start from the beginning to hear some of her testimony, if you don't mind.
Okay.
But I don't want to interrupt you as you're going. So.
All right. So let me just finish this thought. So during the cross-examination, during her direct testimony, rather, she said there were two samples of glass. But in reality, what she was looking at in the photograph was one sample of possible glass, as she called it, possible glass, on the bumper. And then because of the way the photo was taken, on the vertical section of the back of the vehicle, the black paint created a reflection of the scale, the tape scale that she put down. And you can see it's a reflection because the letter B is inverted. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so is the scale. It's flipped. Okay. And she wouldn't admit that in fact was a reflection and not two samples. But her notes, her report should have told her she only collected one sample. Okay. Same thing with the hair. She would not admit that it had moved between those photographs.
Right.
Okay. All right. So you play that and then we'll get back to what else was going on.
And Ed, to expand on what you're saying here is that, like, this just goes right in line with all of the messed up missteps, if you will, in this investigation that involves a off-duty Boston police officer, John O'Keefe. It's just amazing that they would be so nonchalant and so cut corner and so, nah, you know, at some point she was asked, did you test all 6 of the cups in red soil? No, we didn't do that. Did you swab inside the taillight in the lens, in the cracked lens? Nah, no.
I mean, okay, you show the video because there's some other argumentative things that she did that she shouldn't have done.
Depends on the circumstances. We are called out to a scene directly after the incident takes place. There are times when we also will examine additional items or additional scenes after the fact.
How many scenes have you responded to
as far as crime scene response where you were the person who was in charge?
I would say approximately 300.
Rookie.
When you
I
are
had to ask.
asked to or assigned to go to a scene, a crime scene, whether it's active or whether it's later in time,
This is important.
do you make an assessment when you get there, or is there a plan developed before you leave your office and get to the scene?
I'm sorry, can you be more specific?
Sure. How do you decide what you're going to do before you get there?
Generally, when I arrive on scene, I get a brief description of what they think may have occurred. Of course. I will take an overall sketch and diagram of the scene, and I also take some notes of the scene before I perform any type of testing or collection.
When you arrive at a scene and you start engaging in an analysis and determine whether you want to do testing, are you allowed to use your own independent judgment?
Yes, I use my training and experience to determine what items I would like to test and what items I would like to collect.
Is there ever any input by whatever law enforcement team or officer is at the response scene?
Yes, there is.
You mentioned that you've been through a number of crime scene responses. I want to ask you specifically about a response.
Ed, before I let more of this go, I remember you saying in the past that when you go on to the scene of a crime scene, you do not like to let like a detective or a sergeant lead you into particular areas. You take charge of that scene, and this is different because she's in the Sally Port of the Canton PD with Trooper Proctor hovering over her and maybe others there, that maybe made her not feel like, well, okay, I could just go at this in my own way. I feel like, and this is speculation on my part, I feel like that she was being micromanaged and watched with every step that she did as she did this 2-hour crime scene investigation. Do you think I'm off base with that, Ed?
No, not at all. I mean, we had Leaf Blower Lieutenant, he was there. We had Proctor was there. We had other troopers that were there, and they're all like, it's a small area. They're all on top of her. Okay. And, they want this to go in a certain direction. And I'm sure they were putting pressure on her because apparently, based upon their text messages and so forth, they put pressure on a lot of people, like the medical examiner as well, that would change her findings. Okay. So yeah, there's no doubt in my mind that they were trying to put pressure on you, but you as the crime scene investigator, as me as the crime scene investigator, I kick these guys out if they start to become a problem for me. So it's time for you guys to go. I don't need your help. You gave me your briefing. Thank you very much. There's the door. I'll call you when I'm done, and then we'll have another briefing. And I'll tell you what I found. And if you've got any new information that you developed, then you can tell me. At that point, goodbye, get out.
And someone asked about the no road salt. We're going to get into that, but thank you for bringing that up. And Tracy agrees with you exactly, Ed. Let's let the rest of this play. I'm not going to play it all, but I do want to hear how the prosecution sets her up to be this picture perfect collection and evidence. He just painted too pretty of a picture here.
February 2nd, 2022. Do you remember that?
May I check the date on that?
With the court's permission, please.
So I responded to a crime scene on February 1st of 2022.
My apologies. Where did you go on February 1st, 2022?
You were right. My bad. I wrote it down wrong. February 1st.
22.
I was dispatched to the Canton Police Station in their garage area.
When you went to the Canton Police Department, did anybody else from your lab go with you?
There was a crime scene services trooper that also responded at the same time, but there was no additional
Notice how she gets a Michael Proctor amnesia here.
crime scene responder from my unit that responded.
Did you arrive at the Canton Police Department?
Yes, I did.
Is there a garage that you were directed to?
Yes, I was.
When you arrived at the garage, which sometimes may be referred to as a Sallyport area, were there any other people there when you arrived?
There were Massachusetts State Police troopers as well as some Canton police officers.
Did you know who they were?
I did know who the Massachusetts State Police trooper was, yes.
Was Michael Proctor there?
Yes, he was.
Was Trooper Dunn there?
Yes, he was.
Was Trooper Clark there?
Yes.
You mentioned Canton Police Department officers. Do you know Lieutenant Gallagher?
Yes, I did have an interaction with Lieutenant Gallagher as well.
When you got there, did you have a chance to look at an item?
Yes.
Tell us what your focus was on. What type of item?
I was asked to examine a black Lexus SUV.
And was there a black Lexus SUV?
Yes.
As you mentioned, I'd like to show P145.
Did she get amnesia with the cross exam on who was there? Because she didn't hear with the direct from the state.
Yeah. Now, look at this photograph, folks. They asked every time, is this a fair and accurate representation of the photograph? Okay. So you see the tail lens missing on the right side. You see all this, what looks like debris on top of the bumper on the right side. Okay. But you see the Lexus symbol, you see the license plate, you see that white streak going up the rear window. Okay. This is an improperly taken photograph because the flash wasn't used correctly and they didn't have the right settings. Okay. So this, you have some overexposure going on here, right? So when they ask, is this a fair and accurate representation of the rear of the car? And they say, yes, it's really not. All right. Let's move on.
Is that what you saw when you arrived?
Yes, it is.
Did anything stand out to you when you first looked at the back of that Lexus?
I noticed there was some damage to the rear passenger area of the vehicle.
Take that down, please. Did you have a chance to walk around and look at the vehicle from the driver's side of the vehicle, the left side?
Yes.
May I approach? Can you describe what you saw?
Yes, that is the rear passenger taillight of the vehicle.
Is that how it appeared when you?
Again, you see how there's no detail or specificity inside of that lens. That's because the flash is reflecting back and this section is all overexposed. Okay. Again, not a proper way to take the photograph. If this trooper didn't understand that, he should have put the camera on a tripod and taken a time exposure as opposed to using the flash, or he should have taken the head of the flash and bounced it up off the ceiling to come back down. There's ways to properly photograph this, and it just wasn't done.
Right. Mark Blaine says, Dumb and Dumber. It's a no-brainer. Yeah. Somebody also says question mark flash. Ed.
Yeah, the flash on the camera. These are digital SLR cameras that has a hot shoe on top that you mount a camera flash to.
So this picture here that was taken by one of those detectives who are now sergeants that responded to the scene took an overexposed image with too much flash.
Mm-hmm.
Or the flash not positioned properly, right?
Mm-hmm.
First walked in there.
Just yet another fuck up in an investigation that involves an off-duty Boston police officer.
That day?
Yes, it is.
You can take that down. Thank you. When you examine an item like a car, do you take any type of efforts to protect from contamination?
Yes.
What do you do?
Before processing or touching any item of evidence, I'll put on gloves. I use disposable instruments whenever possible, or if I need to use reusable instruments, I will spray them with a 10% bleach solution prior to use. I also change gloves often while I'm examining a vehicle and keep my notes and my pens that I'm writing my notes with. I don't put on gloves when I touch those, and then when I go back to examining the vehicle, I will then re-put on gloves to protect the evidence.
Ed, is that proper?
Yeah, a lot of that was excellent. But what she doesn't do is put on a tie-back suit with a hood. She's got a lot of hair. Okay. So, I mean, she should have been in a suit. She should have wear a mask, maybe goggles, and to process the vehicle.
Right. No mention of booties or anything of that nature, and no mention of the rest of the state troopers. There was many that were rattled off there. I think I counted in my head quickly at least 6, right? 6 total members of the service, all around this vehicle, awaiting the scientist to show up and do her thing. It's just, again, just sad to hear this and see this.
If you see something of note, something that stands out to you, do you have any way of marking the item?
Yes, I take diagrams at the scene and note on my diagrams anything of note. And as I had said, if there's anything that I also want close-up photographs, then I will request the crime scene services trooper who's assigned to crime scene to take those photographs.
Do you ever put any type of markers on the item itself?
Yes, generally I will mark the items with either a letter or a number so that I'm able to refer back to them both in my notes, and I'm able to refer to them when I look at the photos.
When you mark different items or observations that you make, do you
Go ahead, Ed.
Well, you heard what she just said there, but apparently she didn't remember the bumper and the possible piece of glass. Okay.
Unbelievable.
give a specific number to each item for to memorialize it?
Yes, I either use a lettering system or a numbering system.
And how do you memorialize it? Do you put it in writing?
Yes.
What do you do?
On my diagram, I will refer to something, for example, as letter A, and then I'll also mark that item using a marker on the item of evidence with the same letter so that I can connect and associate the photograph with my notes and anything that I collect as well.
In addition to the broken taillight that we just looked at, did you make observation of any other things? And I'm just asking generally, not asking you to specify.
Yes.
Were there other things that stood out to you?
Yes.
Did you take any swabs, any fake swabs from as far as trace for blood?
I screened for blood on various areas of the undercarriage of the vehicle.
And what was the result?
Those were negative.
What does negative mean?
It means that there was no blood present in that area, or if there was, it was below the level of detection of our test.
Did you make any observations where you saw items or marks of interest?
Yes.
I want to ask you about any observations you made of the back bumper. Was there anything significant that you saw relative to the back bumper of that vehicle?
Yes.
And share with us what you saw.
There were scratches on the bumper as well as apparent pieces of glass on the bumper.
When you saw what you believe to be pieces of glass on the back bumper, what is the process you follow?
I gave those an identifying letter. I noted those items in my diagram, and then I eventually collected those items.
How do you collect them?
I would have used either disposable tweezers or tweezers that were cleaned with a 10% bleach solution.
After you collect the items, for example, glass on the back bumper, what do you do with that?
In that moment or later on?
Take us through from the moment you have it till the end.
So I would put those pieces of glass into a glassine envelope, which are then packaged in a larger manila envelope. They are sealed and dated and initialed with my dates and initials. Eventually, when I return to the lab, those pieces are given an item number and then secured in our cold room.
Is each piece of evidence given a separate item number?
Yes.
As far as the entire case, your entire response, not the separate pieces of evidence you may find, is it assigned a particular number or a case number?
Yes, each case will get a larger case number, and then each item within that case gets an individual item number, so that item can be tracked throughout the lab.
Do you remember from your memory what the case number of this is in front of you? I'd like to show P167 to the jury.
Okay.
There are 2 pointers in front of you. Would you mind
Overexposed again, Ed?
pointing
Yes,
out?
totally. I think everybody can see this, right? That it's overexposed.
Yeah, this whole area.
Yes,
This
you can also look at the reflection in the paint. Okay, no, right there, you got it. That is her evidence sticker that is in the overexposed section of that bumper. Okay,
Yes.
and it's being reflected onto the paint of the vertical section that has the LX570 written there.
How pathetic is that? We're seeing this clear as day on the reflection, but you can't see shit. Where the photo, it's not her, it's the photographer who took those images. Again, she stated, I do not take pictures. They have the team that comes and just takes the photos, and they suck at it. Do they suck at it intentionally? That's the question. Hey, we asked in a poll before we went live, and it's just a poll just to see where everybody is. Do you think the Commonwealth has proven their case thus far? And it's a little premature to ask this because we're only on day 15, but an astounding 92%. This is a 2,300 plus votes have been casted so far. 92% said no, they have not proven their case thus far. And 4% said yes, they have. And 4% said they're undecided. Now, I would want to ask too, on top of that, do you feel that the defense has brought up reasonable doubt? And that's all they have to do. They don't have to prove anything, ladies and gentlemen. The defense's job is just to bring up reasonable doubt. And I think they brought up thus far a shit ton of reasonable doubt. Your thoughts, Ed?
I do too. Yeah, I agree. At this point, the amount of this 15 days into this trial, the amount of reasonable doubt they built up is probably about the height of the Empire State Building.
Yeah.
When all is said and done with this trial, if it keeps going down this road, it's going to be taller than the Liberty Tower.
Let's continue because we're already 46 minutes into this.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's my fault because we had a little bit of audio tech snafu that I fixed.
Jury, what stood out to you? And Ms. Gilman, could we get a little bit of a close-up on that bumper, please?
Okay. Now you can see the tape
So I can see one of the
on the
little-
bumper.
but I do see one of the larger pieces of
We can move that
glass right here. Would it be better if I use this one?
Could you?
right
Right.
here.
Yeah.
So this
it's
piece
right there.
here is a larger apparent piece of glass. I think that was the largest one that I saw.
That's
And
horrible.
those two white stickers, could you tell us what those are?
This sticker, this sticker here is marking where the apparent pieces of glass are.
Is there
And
another
I-
sticker above, or is that?
I'm not sure. If you could close up, I'm not sure what that is.
Now he's going to the reflection.
Yes. So that is another sticker. And next to that sticker are additional pieces of glass.
Yowza, yowza, yowza. I mean, this
Yeah, I
was
would say that's an apparent piece of glass.
You can't make this shit up, Ed.
this was like a Perry Mason moment, like during cross-examination, when she had to realize that was a reflection. But again, I can't say.
Insane.
Her notes should have told her she only collected one piece of glass,
Up
suspect
here
glass.
and this one.
Could we just go down to the bottom part again, please? Thank you, Ms. Gilman.
Now and
Take that
only
down.
now that we actually see it.
Did you collect what appeared to be items of glass?
Yes, I did.
Were they assigned a particular number?
Yes.
Do you know that number, I think,
I would have to refer to my notes.
with the court's permission?
Those items were given the item number 3-3.
Did you focus on the right rear side of the vehicle beyond the broken taillight?
Yes.
Did you notice any damage, any scratches to the right quarter panel or the right side of that Lexus?
Yes, I did. I noticed some scratches as well as a dent in the rear door in that same area.
Let's start with the scratches first. When you notice scratches, is there a way you mark them?
Yes, I would have given them a letter.
And did you do that?
Yes.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Okay, but what did you do with that? Did you swab it? Did you cut it out, send it to the lab for microscopy? What did you do with it? Nothing.
That is a close-up of the scratches that I noted in that area.
Could you zoom out again, please, Ms. Gilman? Is that on the back bumper or the right quarter panel?
I believe it's on the right bumper. It's a little difficult to make out in that photo.
Could you zoom in again and move up just a little higher, Ms. Gilman? Thank you. You have another sticker on the top?
Yes, I do.
Do you know what that is?
Yes, I do.
What is that?
That is an apparent hair that I noted in that area.
So that doesn't designate a scratch. That's something entirely separate and different.
That's something different, correct?
We'll get to that
Right.
later. Just wanted to
Ron,
note that is not.
So wait, she's saying up here is the John O'Keefe's hair?
there's a hair there, yeah. And you see these lines that are going around the corner here, these like dashed lines? Okay,
Yeah.
she doesn't explain what that is, but apparently that's the fluorescent light fixtures on the ceiling. Okay, this is not a fair and accurate photograph.
Right.
Crime scene photographs are taken so that we can show the jury what we saw.
Yeah.
So our chat, you are the jury right now. Looking at that, can you make heads or tails of everything she's trying to tell you?
Yeah. And we know that she didn't take the photo, Stephanie. Stephanie in the chat is saying she didn't take the photo. You know,
Yeah, but here's the thing.
stick up for
These
her
are,
partners in the crime lab took it.
yeah, but these are things. Here's the thing. This is not silver film. This is digital. You could see your image you took on the back LCD screen of your camera.
Right.
Okay. So if you look at that LCD screen and you don't like what you're looking at, take another photograph until you get it correct.
Right. Here's
It's
the
not costing you money. It's not as if you're developing film.
right. Here's the flash. This is the reflection of the actual flash, I think, from the camera.
Yes, that's a burn mark. We call that flash burn.
Right. And then the rest of this is from fluorescent lights above in the daily port.
No, we take months of photographic training. We take photography schools, crime scene photography schools, Nikon photography schools, FBI photography schools. You know, we have months and months of training just in photography.
Yeah.
And this doesn't reflect any of that.
Unbelievable.
A scratch. Now, you mentioned that you saw a scratch. Was it a singular scratch or a number of scratches? Could you zoom in, please, Ms. Gilman?
It was a couple of scratches.
What an embarrassment.
Is there a number you designate if it's not a physical item, if it's something like a scratch, or the designations just for actual physical items?
I use the designation for both observations as well as physical items.
Would there be a number for the scratches?
Yes. Well, there's a letter. Yes.
Do you know what that letter is?
Yes, I believe it's D.
I'm showing you another photograph.
Time out.
That's what's in that photograph.
Why are you designating the scratches with letters if you're not going to take those scratches and submit it to the lab for analysis? And you don't know when those scratches occurred. You don't know how long those scratches have been on the car. You can't make an assumption that this is a part of their theory and this occurred based upon their theory at the time of the impact that they suspect. You can't make any of those conclusions.
Yeah, and somebody said in the chat, who cares about the scratches? Well, the scratches really are important because they are the state, the Commonwealth is suggesting that those scratches are from John O'Keefe hitting her car.
Well, did she swab them for DNA?
Nope.
Yes.
What is it?
That is damage that I noted on the rear trunk door of the vehicle.
Is that a fair and accurate depiction of what you saw?
Yes.
When you say damage, what type of damage did you notice?
There was some scratches as well as a dent.
You told us that you saw both dent and scratches. Starting with the scratches with the pointer on the TV to your right, could you show us where you saw further scratches?
So the scratches are up above, and then down here there's chipped paint and a dent.
And where is the dent in relation to the scratches?
Just below it.
Could we zoom in a little more if we could, Ms. Gilman, please? Can you see in this photograph the dent that you saw?
Yes, I was referring to this area here as a dent in my observations.
Next to a hatchback window.
Thank you. You can take that down, please.
Okay, folks.
You recognize it from that photograph?
Yes.
Stop. Thank you, Ron. Everybody.
Breathing down my neck.
All right. Everybody see the water spots and the salt spots? Everybody sees that, right? Okay. Because later on, she's going to be asked, did you see any indications of watermarks on the vehicle? And she's going to say no. Then they actually show her a video of snow melting down the hatchback window and sliding down the back of the car towards the bumper where that glass is found on the 29th of January. The video is capturing this, okay? And she's not admitting to any of this.
Yes, I do.
And can you share with us what you saw?
This is a close-up photo of the apparent piece of hair on the rear of the vehicle.
What did you do when you saw that, what you thought to be a piece of hair?
I marked it with the tape. I designated it as letter A, and then I asked the crime scene services trooper to take a photograph of it.
Did you try to preserve it in any way?
Yes, I did.
Tell us how you preserved that apparent piece of hair.
I collected that hair with either disposable tweezers or tweezers that had been bleached with a 10% bleach solution. I put them in a glassine envelope and then put them in a larger manila envelope. In a larger manila envelope.
What happens to that larger manila envelope?
It is returned back to the lab. It is submitted under the same case number and given its own individual item number.
Did you bring it personally back to the lab?
Yes, I did.
When you brought it back to the lab, do you remember where you brought it when you got back to the lab?
After it was entered into the computer system, I then sealed it, I initialed and dated it, and then I would transfer it to the crime scene response holding area in our cold storage room.
When
Go
you
back to that tail light.
pass it along, is it to protect it
No.
in evidence, or is it for a purpose?
Yeah.
Precedent?
Right there.
And that was captured.
Okay, let's zoom in there. Okay, if you look closely at that light, there's no water and salt deposits inside of that broken light.
Nothing.
Okay,
You would see it most is here on this blackish grayish area, right?
that's because it's black, but you also would see it in the silver area and all the other areas, because if this car is driving from the Alberts to John O'Keefe's house, then from John O'Keefe's house to Jen McCabe's house and back to John O'Keefe's house, and then from John O'Keefe's house to her house, and then from that house back to the Canton Police Department, and all that time there's snow all over the back of this car, yet the snow and the salt is not in there. How's that possible? Okay, unless the lens was on all the way until it got into the garage, the sally port, and then something happened to it afterwards. I mean, it just defies logic and physics.
I want to watch Ed here when she pulls this taillight out of the box. There's other items inside this box, and it was unknown to Auntie Bev, and they didn't disclose it. They just said, "Oh, could you take the taillight out of the box?" She does it, but as she's doing it, something falls out back into the box. And I want to just see, I don't know if any of you guys caught that while the trial was live, but I watched it on a replay and I saw it. And it seemed like Bev made a big deal about it, but abruptly sent the jurors out of the room off to lunch. And then they came back and they talked more about it. But I want to go to the cross after this, but let's play this. See, she just pulled it out and dropped it, actually. Now that I'm looking at it again, it looks like she takes it out with her hand, with her right hand, takes it and then drops it in the box. Take a peek at this, folks in the chat. Right here, with this right hand.
Left hand.
Boom. Right here. Drops down, watch it. Boom.
You could hold that so the jury can see it. You could hold it up high, please. Thank you.
Anybody see any water spots or any
Thank you
salt
very
spots?
You could return that to the box.
It looks super duper clean, like somebody actually cleaned it, Ed.
Okay, let's fast forward this, Ron.
I would move this item into evidence, please.
1 second.
No objection, Your Honor.
There were additional items in that box as
Oh.
well.
I only want to introduce that one item.
Okay, so your bag, you need to take that bag out.
There were also other items in that bag.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
She was pissed.
Yes,
Yeah, all these things should be individually packaged.
lunch is here. All right, sure, the lunch isn't here, so we'll see.
Your lunch is here, jurors. All right, let's go. On the cross, I think that they did a really good job. I have a separate video that I want to just fast forward it through the cross of Maureen
Yeah.
Hart.
Go for it. And she's not done. She's coming back tomorrow.
Ultimately, during your work and inspection of the vehicle, the SUV, the right rear taillight housing was removed as you testified to on direct examination, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And you testified that a Canton police officer sort of helped you with the last stage of the removal of that taillight.
Yes, that's correct.
Do you know whether that officer was wearing, do you have a distinct recollection that that officer was wearing any special protective gloves?
I only know because I have seen the videos recently that he was wearing gloves.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your answer.
I only know that he was wearing gloves because I have recently seen the video. I do not have a firsthand memory of that.
You said you recently saw a video. When was that?
Monday.
And what was
Maybe, I'm sorry. Let me correct myself. What day is today? I saw it Thursday, excuse me.
And what was the circumstances under which you were reviewing a video?
I had just recently found out there was video, and it's just something I wanted to see in case I was shown it on the stand, so I knew what it consisted of. I hadn't seen it prior to last Thursday.
A lot of people found a problem with that, but that's her preparing for her testimony, right, Ed? Or did you find?
Yeah, but he made it seem like he didn't know that this video existed. So that, because
Right.
he seemed to be taken a little off guard about this video.
Right.
So there was actual surveillance footage from inside the garage of them processing the car.
Right, and maybe he didn't see it. It did cause a lot of people to be talking about this and saying it was inappropriate. Could she have gone back to last year's testimony or last year's? I don't recall seeing a video of that, but yeah, you're right. Yep. So what video? And the defense seemed very taken back by it, but he just moves because he's got a lot to cover, so he moves on.
Did you testify to that on your direct and I missed it, or did it not come up? Viewing a video.
I'm sorry, yes, I believe I was asked if I had seen the video, and yes, I had.
Okay, thank you. Now back to the tail light. Mr. Woke, if we could have Exhibit 145 published.
Clean it is.
The screens, and I know you went through this on direct, so I'm going to shortcut it. This is the tail light at the lab that you were talking about on direct, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And that's the taillight housing that you submitted to the lab that you had obtained from the Sallyport garage, right?
Yes,
So
correct.
just to cover quickly some basics, there was one swab taken that you mentioned on direct of that taillight.
Yes.
And you testified, if I remember correctly, on direct that it's better for you just, if you could with a pointer, is just show the areas you covered with that one swab.
So I collected the swab from any of what would have been exposed areas of the taillight when the taillight was intact.
And if you could please just give like a perimeter full, I know it's not a circle, but whatever it is, just full perimeter so the jury can see the entire area that you swabbed.
Sure. It was this upper right-hand red area, this portion down here, I believe it's red. And then there's also a portion of clear area in the front here that was swabbed. And that was all contained on a single swab.
Thank you very much. So I want to keep this up if I could, Your Honor, but we can have the lights back on if that's acceptable.
Ed's shaking his head. Ed?
Yeah, she does a combo swab, and she could have cross-contaminated the, 3 separate DNA samples. She does, we'll never know. And then we wouldn't, if she did 3 separate swabs and then we got 3 different people's DNA, we know the exact locations of each of those swabs. Now we'll never know if that, in fact, is the case. That's why you don't do that.
Right, exactly. No, Christina, you're not on mute. So here we go.
Call it the inside part of the taillight. Is that acceptable?
Okay.
So the inside of the taillight, to be clear, you didn't swab that area.
No, I did not.
Yes, she'll be back tomorrow, folks.
In terms of where you did swab, given that you swabbed with one swab the entire area, you are not able to say precisely where any DNA might have come from?
Just that it would have been present, if there was DNA present on that swab, it would have come from the external exposed area of the taillight, should the taillight have been intact.
But again, on the inside, because you didn't swab the inside, you had no evidence of DNA on the inside of the taillight, correct?
Correct. I did not swab the inside.
Now, I would have followed up at this point. Did someone tell you not to swab the inside?
Right, but he didn't. He didn't. But she's coming back tomorrow, so I hope they're listening.
With regard to what we'll call the outside where you did swab as opposed to the inside where you didn't? you cannot define whether the DNA was to the upper right, to the outside of the taillight lens, or some other place in that area, correct?
No, I wouldn't be able to narrow down where on the external portion, external front. I mean, I didn't swab anything in the back that was attached to the vehicle. So anything in the external front, I would not be able to narrow down any further where, if any biological material was present, where it was recovered from, specifically on the external area.
You did not find any glass on the inside of the taillight.
Are you referring to like loose pieces?
Any?
I did not note anything unusual inside the taillight.
I'm speaking, thank you for that answer. I am speaking specifically about glass. You didn't find any glass on the inside of that taillight when you were accepted for your entire inspection on February 1st, 2022, correct?
I'm just want to make sure that I understand your question. I didn't find anything that was not inherent to the taillight inside. I don't know what the taillight's made out of. So if there's a portion on the inside that's made out of glass, it may have been there. I didn't see anything that was out of place on the interior of the taillight.
Okay. So using your terms inherent, you mean by that something could have been on the inside of that taillight that was part of the taillight that could have been glass. But other than that, there's no what scientists call exogenous or outside glass or glass that doesn't belong as part of the taillight, correct?
I'm hesitant to answer that specific question. I don't perform glass analysis, so I just perform collection. So if there was something that apparently looked like glass that had been loose inside, is that's what you're referring to? I can answer that question, but I can't say specifically whether a material is glass.
And I got to ask you this, and again, this is a little off topic here, but it does pertain to this. In the New York City Police Department, you were in the crime scene unit, and you were considered part of the A team. And I know they probably didn't have the A team and the B team and the C team like the squad had. But if you were sent out, or if there was a crime scene that involved an off-duty member of the service, an NYPD, or any Nassau, Suffolk, Westchester, surrounding any off-duty cop from any jurisdiction, are they going to send out to do the crime scene processing anything less than the A team?
Well, at the time I was there, we had full staffing. And everybody was pretty much trained to the same level. Only later on in my career, towards the end of my 15 years in crime scene, did they start calling people in from RDO, RDOs, or regular days off folks who don't know the terminology, on our day off to come in on overtime to assist on high media profile cases, officer involved cases, and things of that nature. But in the beginning, no, if you were RDO, that was it. You were RDO. Whoever was working caught that case.
Yeah, it just seems like they didn't go over the top to try to really uncover and unfold as much evidence as possible. It's just mind blowing. It just blows my mind to day in and day out see this. And when I see it, it's like heartbreaking for me, because that's not how we did it in New York.
I understand. My question is a basic one.
Okay.
Which is, you found no glass that would not be let me strike that. Did you ever observe in this taillight any glass as part of the taillight? This part of the taillight? Anything glass that you observed?
Again, I can't make the distinction on a material being glass. So I think the premise of the question I'm having difficulty answering.
Okay.
But yet she called the bumper piece a possible glass.
Questioning.
Yeah.
You didn't make any note that said you found glass inside of that taillight, correct?
I wouldn't make a note that something is glass inside a taillight because I can't draw a conclusion to what a material is, because that's just not part of the analysis I do.
Yes, you could do that, Jen.
And to wrap this part up, and then we can.
But they didn't do that here.
And
No, because they weren't, didn't look for it. Blood, didn't look for blood.
this item,
Latent blood, I mean.
You didn't find any DNA on the inside of that tail light.
Ed, Cabo Girl is.
My analysis would not include
She's
DNA.
saying that your mic is terrible, Ed.
I don't know what's wrong with the mic. It's on. It's got all the lights. Everything is working.
Can you tap it to see if it's working? Not.
I hear it. You don't hear it?
No. We would hear it if that was on. Anyways, we'll
Hold
get to
on, let
that.
me check.
We'll get to that after the show. I don't want to ruin everything. But thank you, Cabo Girl.
Analysis, because that is a different unit. So I can't answer that question.
To your knowledge, as you sit here today, is there any information from anybody that says that there's any DNA in that tail light?
I have no information of that.
Thank you. So what I want to do now is, if we can take that down, Mr. Wolk, I want to move on to what is sometimes referred to as touch DNA. I know you're familiar with that concept, right, Ms. Hartnett?
Yes, that's correct.
And what is, for the jurors' understanding, what is touch DNA?
When skin comes into contact with an item, potentially skin cells can be left behind, which is commonly referred to as touch DNA, when in essence it's these skin cells from the person being transferred to another object or item.
So is this a fair example that if I walk by the podium and brush my hand against it like that, I could verify DNA on
Now
that
I hear
photo,
it.
what I just did?
So standard up more foundation from this witness.
Yeah,
Thank
my
you.
settings got changed for some reason.
Same.
Yeah, thank you, Your Honor. Are you familiar with the process by which a person can leave touch DNA on the surface?
Yes, I commonly defer to biological material because that is what my expertise is in. Skin cells can be transferred to an item, and skin cells can potentially provide DNA.
So do hands, palms of hands, produce skin cells?
Yes, they are made of skin cells,
And
correct.
if a hand is on, for example, a podium, can there be a transfer of skin cells to the podium?
Yes, there can be.
And therefore, can the hands on a podium that have skin cells transfer DNA?
Yes, again, I'm not a DNA expert, but generally that would be the source, would be skin cells. Could be, yes.
You also indicated that you collected apparent glass from the rear bumper of the Lexus, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And you use the term apparent glass, as I understand forensic science, because at the time you're not really sure what it is, right? So you use the word apparent glass, and you can't take away the apparent until there's a confirmation that it is glass, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And on your direct examination, you went through a discussion, so I'm going to shortcut it a little bit, about apparent glass that you located on the rear bumper of the vehicle, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Your Honor, with your permission, can we publish exhibit showing you what is Exhibit 141 in evidence? And I know you know this, and I know it's been discussed. Could you just give a brief summary of what is depicted in Exhibit 141?
This is a close-up of the right rear area of the bumper where I noted the pieces of apparent glass.
It's
And you
not a
remember
close-up.
discussing this on your direct examination?
Ed, what did you say?
It's not a close-up. A close-up, you fill the entire frame with the item of evidence and the scale. That's a medium range shot, okay? Not a close-up, and it's overexposed. Go ahead.
Yes.
Now, I just want to cover some basics with regard that weren't covered on the direct examination. You're a specially trained person, and that's how you get your forensic scientist to title, correct?
Yes, it means that I've gone through all the training within the lab.
And all that training and all of those procedures are important and necessary because the collection of evidence is important, correct?
That is one of the reasons, correct?
And if those protocols aren't followed, then that can lead to incorrect conclusions, correct?
Depending on what portion of the protocol isn't followed, but yes, it's
But
possible.
certainly, at a minimum, it increases the risk for an incorrect conclusion or observation, correct?
Again, it depends on what part of the protocol isn't followed, but it's possible.
I assume it's therefore important to you that the protocols are followed so that the best result and the best collection and therefore the best analysis occurs, correct?
I make every effort to follow the protocols.
Is the
Here it is. I believe this is where he asks about the red Solo cups, Ed.
Hmm.
Do you remember?
Yep. Go.
The quantity of the material you observe and collect also relevant, perhaps not to you, but to other persons in the investigation?
Yes, it can be.
And therefore, it's important not only to get the type of material correct, but to get the quantity correct.
In some instances, yes.
And with regard to your work on this vehicle on February 1st, do you recall discussing the collection, the observations you made with regard to the rear bumper?
I'm sorry, can you ask that question again,
Sure.
please?
On direct examination, you talked about glass on the rear bumper, correct?
Yes,
You
apparent
talked
glass.
about what you observed, you talked about what you put a sticker on, you talked about what you collected, you talked about the transport, correct?
That is correct.
And you put it in your notes and you talked about it on direct examination, I assume because it was an important part of the work that you did.
Yes, it's a piece of evidence that I collected, correct.
And therefore, it's important for you to have made correct observations and to make correct collection, right?
Correct.
With your Honor's permission, if Mr. Wolk, you could zoom in on the stickers, right? So this Hartnett, on your direct examination, you stated that there were 2 stickers and that there were therefore glass associated with each sticker, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So 2 stickers and glass associated with each sticker, correct?
Yes, correct.
In fact, there's only 1 sticker, and the second sticker is merely a reflection of the first sticker, and therefore you have doubled the stickers and you've doubled the amount of glass on the bumper. Can you see that? Can you determine that from the photo?
No, can I see the other photo, please?
Yes.
Okay.
So if we could, Your Honor, with your permission, go to Exhibit 133.
Embarrassing. One reflection. She's shitting herself right now.
It's not good.
As you see this one, can you now make a determination, having seen both of them, whether there is in fact just 1 sticker and therefore 1 volume of glass associated with it?
No, I cannot.
Are you kidding me? It's a vertical section. That is the vertical section of the back of the car. It's black paint. It's reflecting the plastic bumper top.
So she's doubling down because she doesn't want to admit that she was wrong. This is what's wrong with her testimony. This is
well, she just lost all credibility. Okay, you talked about reasonable doubt earlier. It's here now. Okay,
yeah, this is
it's here now because she shouldn't. This isn't the hill she should have chose to fight on. She should have said, "Oh, you know what? You're right. My bad."
Yeah, but she didn't. She doubled down on it, and that's what makes it the ego downfall. Tracy Van Bragg gets the comment of the live stream. Ego is a downfall, and that's what she's going on. Like, you can't tell me I'm wrong. No, Mr. Defense Attorney, you can't tell me that that's a reflection when it obviously is.
Well, you know what he should have done at that point? It says, do you have your report with you right now? Can you pull up your report and see how many pieces of glass you collected from that bumper?
And therefore 1 volume of glass associated with it.
No, I cannot. You're saying this is a reflection?
I can't testify.
Okay.
I'm asking you.
I love that he said, I can't testify. I'm asking you, lady.
Well, I hope to, yeah. Lynn, I hope tomorrow he does that. He asks her to pull out a report. How many pieces of glass did you collect? How many letter Bs? First of all, you shouldn't have more than one letter B. One piece of evidence is B, and then if that was a different location, then the other one should be another letter, not B again.
Yeah.
With your Honor's permission, if we could go back to the other picture,
Okay.
and you could zoom in.
There it is.
Do you see a reverse B in that picture?
I'm sorry, I didn't get that.
I'm sorry, a reverse B as in Bob?
No, could you zoom in on each of the stickers for me, please?
We'll do whatever you would like to do to answer the question. So
Sure.
Here's the B.
And then if I could just see the other sticker, please.
Absolutely.
Yes, I believe that is a reverse B, correct?
And doesn't that mean that it's a mere reflection and that there's only one sticker that you put on and therefore only one volume of glass associated with one sticker?
Can you say that question again? I can't hear you.
I'm sorry, I will stay by the microphone. Is this microphone
Yeah.
picking up? So therefore, can you now conclude, because of the reflection and because of the reverse B, that there is only, in actuality, and there was only in actuality, one sticker and one B, and therefore one volume of glass associated with this bumper?
I wish the lights were up.
I don't know specifically that it's a reflection. It's not unusual for me to use the same letter on a sticker if I'm going to collect the items of evidence together. So if I had written it, on top or on the bottom of the scale on one of them and on the top of the scale on the other one, that is a possibility. It's difficult for me to tell by this picture. What I can tell you is that all the items of glass or apparent glass that were present on the bumper were collected together.
Where's your evidence log? Where's your chain of custody? Look at the documents. Where's your sketch?
Oh my God.
She had the perfect opportunity to get out of this, but she just dug herself, into the hole deeper. Here's the old adage, folks. When you dig yourself into a hole, stop digging.
Yeah. Yeah. If I won a home in Canton, I would give it away to somebody else.
Okay.
So I can't say specifically by looking at this photo whether I just label two separate areas to make the photo show the pieces better or if it is a reflection.
Good gravy, Ed Wallace.
Let's get to the clothing. What she did with the clothing at the laboratory.
Holy shiitake mushrooms.
So,
right,
folks,
go ahead,
she had the pants, she had the underwear, she had the shoes, she had the T-shirt, and she had the hoodie. Now, all of which had EMS damage, right? Everybody knows EMS stands for emergency medical services, right? So they take out their EMT shears and they cut the clothing off the victims. They do it time and time again, all right? Even though no matter how many times I train them and tell them, try to avoid critical pieces of the clothing that may contain forensic evidence, boom, they go right for it. That said, she's got the clothing, she puts the paper down, she photographs it, but she doesn't scan the clothing with an alternate light source to look for hairs and fibers. And even if she didn't use an alternate light source, she didn't even do a tape lift of the articles of clothing for hairs and fibers. Okay. She didn't examine the clothing with an infrared camera. She didn't photograph it. Okay. To see if she can find trace transfer evidence in there, because this is dark colored clothing, right? At least the hoodie is, then the shirt is orange. She did scrapings of the clothing for trace transfer. She took a rigid article and she scraped the areas of the cloth and she caught it in a paper package, not package per se, but paper. And then she does a druggist fold. But she took the scrapings from the hoodie and she commingled them with scrapings from the T-shirt. and then she repackaged those clothing together. And then she did the same thing with the underwear and the pants. She took those scrapings and put them together. I suggest to you she should have never done scrapings, because when you do scrapings like that, there's a chance for you to aerosolize things and for things to pop off and fly away. That what she should have used was a 3M trace evidence vacuum canister system. Okay, inside of here is a filter. This is the nozzle that you use to vacuum onto the clothing. This end goes onto the hose of the vacuum, and you use a specific trace evidence vacuum that is clean, has a HEPA filter, and so forth, so that you pop this off and then you vacuum it. And then each article of clothing gets its own vacuum canister. And if you want to be even more anal, like I am, this is the front of one article of clothing, then I go and get a new one, and then the new one is the back. And I do that for all the articles of clothing. So at least 2 canisters per clothing.
Right.
Okay. And then you package it up, fill it out, seal it up, and then send it to the correct part of the lab for analysis.
And none of that was done here. Let's listen to her about the solo cups and also the shirt, because the shirt and the hoodie, we get to see some interesting stuff here. And that'll bring us to our next point of the conversation, because we're almost all the way through her testimony.
Correct my answer from the last question.
Wait.
My apologies. So in this particular instance, the entire swab was cut up and put into plastic tubes for further testing.
Why did you do it that way?
This item was quantity limited. The swab itself was quantity limited, meaning that they'd have to use up the whole swab in order to run DNA analysis.
Did you do DNA analysis on the swab?
No, I did not.
Why not?
I am not. I don't work in the DNA unit, so that is the job of a different analyst.
At some point, did you take that item that had been preserved and put it into evidence?
Yes, I did. Close-up of area damage 1.
Is that a fair and accurate depiction of what you saw that day when you examined this?
Not fair and accurate.
Yes.
I move these 4 photographs into evidence. I could just see them quickly.
Now she's going to testify here that she swabbed those defects in the arm of the sleeve, but I don't recall her doing it in her testimony in the last trial.
Former P190.
Did anybody remember in the chat?
Is that one of the photographs you just recognized?
Yes, it is.
And could you explain to us what you see?
This is the exterior front of the gray sweatshirt. There is linear damage between the top and bottom of the sweatshirt, as well as linear damage across each sleeve of the sweatshirt.
Do you see the cut down the front of that sweatshirt?
Yes.
Did you distinguish that cut as any different than the damage on the arm?
I did not do any damage analysis on that particular area of damage.
Why not?
Typically in these type of events, you'll see those types of damage associated with clothing being removed from emergency medical technicians, so they're not forensically relevant.
Thank you. If we could turn now to former P194.
Ed, a lot of people have questions about this dark stain here. Is this what you would say indicative of dried up blood?
Yes, it has that appearance. It's called, we'd call it a unknown reddish brown stain. And then we would perform presumptive field tests, or the OBTI, which is specific to human blood. And we would perform that test in the field. If we had any, remember, this was cut off of our victim here. And he had plenty of blood on his face, by his nose and mouth and so forth. And if he was standing erect when that bleeding occurred, you could see how it would come straight down from the mouth and nose, straight down the center of his clothing. I've seen this time and time again. Yes, folks, you hear my dog barking, right?
Yeah.
Because unlike the Albert's dog, when somebody comes in front of my house, Kara's alerting us that there's somebody there.
She's part of the security squad. I mean, I've seen vomit also on decedent shirts. It looks a little different than this, folks. It doesn't have this type of brownish stain to it. And again, people in the chat are talking about that it came back to what was it again? Pigs.
Well, she said she swabbed certain areas, and then the DNA came back to pig DNA.
Right.
Now, again, if anybody has dog treats like pig ears, then that could be the source for that.
Right.
But again, remember how these things were handled. Proctor and Sergeant Uri took them and they put them on the floor, on a paper on the floor for 6 days. And who knows what the temperature of that room was, how these things were treated. The security of this was lacking because anybody with a key card access could have gone in there. Nobody was actually watching it. It wasn't as if there was a video camera in this room where these articles of clothing were on the floor.
So I want to move forward to here because, again, she did some. All right, let's just let this play.
Yes.
Did you distinguish that cut as any different than the damage on the arm?
I did not do any damage analysis on that particular area of damage.
Why not?
Typically in these type of events, you'll see those types of damage associated with clothing being removed from emergency medical technicians, so they're not forensically relevant.
Thank you. If we could turn now to former P-194.
This is where we see the marks on his arms.
Yet there's no plastic in any of this. There's no blood in any of this. These defects that are in here.
Sweatshirt.
Yes, it is.
There's a little bit difference. There's markings or tabs on it.
Yes, that's correct.
What are you doing there?
I put tabs on each of the areas of damage on the sleeve and 2 on the chest that I was going to examine further.
When you put the tabs on, do you write a report or mark it in any way to memorialize it in case the tabs fall off?
Yes, in this case, they were marked tabs 1 through 9. Those are not permanent on the sweatshirt. They're actually just pieces of filter paper that I used to mark it.
Could we, Ms. Gilman, zoom in on that right arm, please?
Yes, and then I would have sketched that. I would have done pretty similar to what she did. I would have sketched it and measured every defect.
Yeah, I'm not an expert at this stuff, but these look like puncture wounds.
Then you got to take close-ups. You have to take close-ups. And you got to remember, the doctor testified, the bite mark doctor testified to this, how, when the canine teeth go in, they make a puncture. And then when they pull out, they then pull the fibers out in the direction that it entered. So, yeah.
Yeah, you can see it.
And these aren't close-ups. You got to get to the close-ups. And she needed to take close-ups with scales. I don't know if she did it because it wasn't introduced here.
Damage that I examined.
And when you write a report, when you memorialize it, is that keep an accounting of each?
Yes, that's correct.
If we could turn now to former P-196, which is 147C.
Now look at that.
See, there should have been a scale here, and there isn't.
What does that depict, ma'am?
That is a close-up of the area of damage 1 that I did further examination on.
Could we zoom in a little bit on the circle part? Is that a fair and accurate depiction of what it looked like when you examined it?
Yes, it is.
And finally, if we could have P-197,
It sure does look like
which
that,
is
Meglo.
exhibit 147D.
Look at this.
What are you doing there?
That's a close-up photo of that same area of damage 1 with a scale included.
We just saw a close-up of one of the holes that was marked number 1. Did you do the same analysis for each and every one of those areas that you marked?
Yes, I did.
And did you look close up at each and every one of them and measure each and every one of them?
Yes, I did.
Are there photographs showing all of those different angles for each and every hole that you went through?
Yes, I took numerous photographs of each area of damage.
You could take that down, please. In addition to that sweatshirt, did you look at any other clothing items?
Yes, I did.
Court's permission, can I approach?
Yes.
Thank you.
That is a photograph of item 7-17 is the back of the orange T-shirt.
Notice the
Can we
date,
zoom a little
5/15,
in on the numbers on the
2023.
bottom, Ms. Gilman? What's that on the bottom?
That is the case number, the individual item number for that T-shirt, my initials and the date that I examined it, or the date that I took the photo.
And why would they delay the crime scene looking at this shirt until May 15th of 2023?
The lab. You can see the case number 2022 is the year, right?
Mhm.
And that was their number there, 2184. How did they justify it? And where was this the entire time? Sitting around in the lab.
From
How did
one-
they justify not having processed this?
From 1/29 of 2022 to 5/15 of 2023 for a fallen police officer. For anybody, for that matter. And look, if this was one of our family members, this would be outrageous. I don't know.
So you had obtained this item on that date, or this is when you examined it and already had it?
That is the date that I opened it up, examined it, and took the photo.
And on the left, what's that ruler used for?
That's a scale just to show the size of the item.
Could we zoom back out and get a full look at that? Thank you. If you could turn next to P233, Ms. Gilman. What is that, a photograph of?
That is a photograph of the front of the orange T-shirt, item 7-17.
Ms. Gilman, can we first see the bottom left-hand corner? Zoomed in a little bit. Thank you. Why did you place a marker there?
I used markers on this item to note areas of staining that I was going to do further analysis on.
Did you do further analysis of that stain area?
Yes, I did.
How did you do that? Any different than the swab you talked about before?
This I screened for blood, and I'd have to check my notes for any further testing I did on it.
When you screened it for blood, was it positive or negative result?
That was positive.
Do you know if you did anything further with it?
May I check my notes?
With the court's permission? Thank you.
Well, she obviously has her notes, so she could have asked to check the notes to look to see if the glass on the bumper was one or two samples.
Please.
Yes, I also performed a confirmatory test for blood on that stain.
So what's the difference between a preliminary and a confirmatory test?
A screening test, other types of materials may cause a positive reaction. For the confirmatory test, it is confirmatory for blood, as well as it indicates human blood, although you might get a positive reaction from primate blood or ferret blood.
Right, and I showed you.
Right.
I showed you this when we had a special Forensic Friday on blood. The name of the test is called OBTI. So if you have ferrets and other such animals and humans, primates, that particular test will test positive for blood for that, for humans, primates, and ferrets, and so forth.
Yeah. So someone just said she photographed, No Word Salad, Daubertized, said she photographed this. I thought she wasn't a photographer.
Yeah, she does this in the lab, not in the field.
Not in the field. So yeah, she will take pictures in the lab, but definitely not out in the field. Just unbelievable.
And zoom in if you would. We see 3 tabs there. What are you looking for in those areas?
Those are 3 additional red-brown stains that I performed further testing on.
And do you have the results of that testing?
So I performed a screening test on each of those tests, and each of those screening tests was positive. I performed a confirmatory test on stains A and C, which were also positive. I did not perform that test on stain B due to its small size.
If you could zoom out just a little bit, please. Similar to the sweatshirt, there's long cuts through the front of that T-shirt. Is your analysis and opinion any different than the similar cuts that you saw on the sweatshirt?
Yes, I did not perform any additional analysis on those area of damage due to the fact that they're most likely attributed to the emergency medical technicians or medical personnel removing that item of clothing.
Thank you. You could take that down, please, Ms. Gilman. And for the final piece of clothing, did you have a chance to look at pants?
I did look at a pair of jeans, yes.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Yeah, let's look at the pants, because that one pocket is still ripped, but they laid it back down. And it appears that there's blood on the inside of the buckle.
If we can next show P240. Nice, please. Nice, please.
Photograph of
Court permission, I'd show P242, which is 149A to the jury.
Okay.
Here it is.
Was there anything of note when you examined these
Yeah, it looks like there's blood right here, right?
Yeah.
pants?
These pants also had linear damage between the top and the bottom, which would be consistent with cuts made by emergency medical personnel when removing the item.
If we could zoom in to show the cuts, Ms. Gilman. And could we scroll down, please? Thank you. We can next show P243, which is 149B. Could you zoom in on the top part of those pants, please? Do you make any
There's a
observations or notes about the pants?
Pocket not ripped, but then again, it could be just laying.
No, that pocket is ripped. They put it back down.
Right.
Okay, now, how did that occur? They should examine the tear. Is it a tear or was it cut? Did somebody stick their hand in there and try to lift a lifeless body and it ripped? Analysis should have been performed on it and all these stains.
May I look at my notes, please?
With the court permission, please. Thank
Yeah, it could have dragged them by the belt. They could have dragged them by the back pocket. Anything, any scenario is possible, but
Did he have the phone in the back pocket? Did he reach in there? Did someone try to reach in there to grab the phone and then tore the pants going after the phone?
I noted numerous red-brown stains on the clothing, as well as dirt and debris on the clothing.
What part of the pants did you note the dirt and debris?
It was just a general observation. I didn't specifically denote where it was.
Ms. Gilman, could you scroll from the top to the bottom of the pants, please? Thank you. You can take that down, please.
again, 5/15/23.
Did you perform any additional testing relative to the clothing that you examined, that being the sweatshirt, the T-shirt, and the pants?
I performed numerous tests on each of the red-brown stains on the items that I marked.
After you completed examining the red and brown stains, did you do any other type of testing or evidence collection relative to the clothing?
Yes, I did.
Could you share with the jury what you did as far as further evidence collection relative to the clothing?
Can we take it item by item?
We
How would you
sure
prefer
can.
to do it?
Let's start with the sweatshirt.
Okay. So in addition to testing the red-brown stains, I collected any stain that was positive or confirmatory for blood. After performing that collection, I also performed a collection around the tears on the right sleeve of the item. That's using 2 cotton swabs moistened with sterile water, which I vigorously rubbed around the areas of the teared areas on the sleeve. I also performed an additional scraping and swabbing of the unstained areas of the sweatshirt for any potential skin cell recovery. In addition, I performed a debris collection from the sweatshirt.
I want to stop you there. I want you to explain to us in some detail, what is a debris collection and how do you undergo a debris collection?
After I've completed all the testing that I'm going to do on the item, I remove any large items that may be present on the item, such as apparent hairs or fibers, anything that I can pick off, I can visibly see with a pair of tweezers. Once that is done, I will do a general debris collection where I took a large metal spatula-shaped object and scraped the clothing, or in this particular case, the sweatshirt. And any debris that came off the sweatshirt was put into a glassine fold and preserved.
Before you tried to scrape off any debris that was on the sweatshirt, could you, to your own eye, see any debris in the sweatshirt?
May I check my notes?
Yes.
And where was these items from 1/29/2022 up until May of 2023? Who had control of these items, all this evidence?
Well, she left Canton PD on the 1st of February with them.
Yeah, so all of this is suspect. She goes on to talk about the injuries on John's arm here. And again, on cross edge, she was really torn apart here when he talked about the weather. This is the weather report
Yeah.
Average speed, I think the wind was gusts of up to 37 miles per hour.
Yeah,
and-
we're beating a dead horse with her now. I mean, she dug herself that hole, and she didn't stop digging it, until Judge Bev ended the court day.
And she'll continue tomorrow. And really, her testimony to the jury, who are supposed to be paying attention, we know that they're paying attention. Her testimony is there's going to be doubt there, because she didn't even want to admit that those markings were reflection in the back of the SUV.
Right, and as I said, her notes have to tell her that.
Right.
Can I get back to the tail light and the salt in the water and how we could test for that?
Absolutely.
Can you bring up some of the photos that I said sent you? Let's start with the deionized water.
Yes. Before we do that, I want to say thank you to Kerry Devlin for buying 5 cups of coffee for us during this live stream, and all of the super chats. There's 34 of them here. I'm going to get to them all with Ed. We're going to read them out at the end, and we're going to get to all of the super chats. So Ed, you wanted me to go to your first set of pictures that you sent to
the photos that says DI water.
Oh, okay. Hold on a second. I got it. Okay. I'm going to make this a little larger and then open it up. Let's share it.
Okay, folks. So we would take a squeeze bottle like this filled with deionized water, and we would squirt this over the lens and have a clean, sterile funnel underneath the lens. And underneath the funnel would be a certified chemically clean glass jar to capture the runoff from the lens through the funnel and into the glass jar. So you could show them the certified clean glass jar. There it is. And that is a chemically certified clean glass jar. And that's the documentation you get from the manufacturer that says, hey, we tested the inside of this thing and none of these chemicals are here. So then once we take that, we could then introduce it to this GC mass spec here to conduct a chemical analysis, gas chromatography, mass spectrometry on that. And if the road salt was there, it's going to identify it. Now, that's one way to do it, okay? This is how we inject it into the system. We would take a solid phase micro extractor needle, stick it into the water that we captured in the chemical clean jar, and then inject it into the GC mass spec. Next, if we didn't want to do that, we could take what I have here. Let's get me back to camera. Okay. This is a scanning electron microscope pedestal with carbon tape. You see the aluminum pedestal with carbon tape. It's sticky tape. I can then go into the inside of the lens and tap the tape, the black tape, onto those surfaces. And then I can pull this pedestal out and place it into the scanning electron microscope and then conduct the elemental analysis that way. So if you could show them the scanning electron microscope, there it is. And that has X-ray diffraction capability. And it could conduct the elemental analysis. So if road salt was in there, it would identify it. So that's several ways that we can do that.
Janine in the chat, could Ed go out there and retrain these folks? They should. They claim, the Massachusetts State Crime Lab claims that they are that they have meet all the national standards, and that they that it's just crazy that what they didn't do here. Ed, is this all available to NYPD crime scene?
Oh yeah. Oh
yeah.
Yeah. Can we show them the fiber and the ALS?
Absolutely. Just give me 2 seconds because I got to change screens.
Give me 3 steps. Give me 3 steps, mister. Give me 3.
Hold on a second.
That's what all the witnesses were saying on the news.
What you gonna do? What you gonna do when they get for you?
Kiss
Bad boys. What you gonna do? What you gonna do when they get for you?
kiss me. You won't regret.
Kiss me, Wallace. You won't regret it. All right, here we go. All right, we're on to it. I got it. What are we looking at here, sir?
Okay, so you have your cloth material on your left with no alternate light source fluorescence, right? That's how it appears to your naked eye. But then when we turn on the UV light, you see now the foreign fiber fluoresces orange. And so now we're identifying a fiber that is not a part of the fabric in that shirt. And so we know we can collect that with a tape lift. Okay.
Wow. So these are two of the same things, but with that
No, the right and the left are the same fabric. And that on that left, that hair is there, but you can't see it with your naked eye until I fluoresce it with the UV light.
You know,
Okay.
this forensic stuff, Ed, is fascinating. What do you got there? What the hell is that?
That's the forensic light, and it's the UV. It's the UV light, and with the orange barrier in front of my goggles, when I'm shining this on there, it will let me see that orange fiber or hair.
Lifestyle light.
Yeah, yeah. Yes. Okay, maybe we can do do the video.
Okay, let's do the crash test. What do you think?
Yeah, the crash test.
Okay, so our good friend, I think most of us here has seen his demonstrations. BN Trouble 31. If you guys have seen this YouTube channel, he is, I mean, he does so many videos, so many demonstrations. He got up on a scale and was putting pressure on the back tail light. Put a 1 in the chat if you've seen this guy. We're going to play this with his permission, obviously. He did a mock run with, you want to set this up?
Yeah, so he conducted an experiment where he got a ballistic arm, which is ballistic gelatin surrounding the skeleton of the hand, the wrist, elbow, the forearm and bicep up to the shoulder area. Okay, it's encased in ballistic gelatin. And he took the Lexus taillight, welded a brace to the back of his SUV at the height that the taillight would actually be at. And he had an assistant hold out the arm as he was driving to reach 25 miles an hour. And the assistant released the arm, and it impacted the Lexus tail light for Karen Reed's specific vehicle. And that's the setup that he had come up with.
Now,
And
Ed, how accurate is this test? Because, of course, they're going forward motion. It's the same speed, so I believe it should be the same impact. But it also is someone holding out an arm. So it's not like a person, 180 pounds, 200-pound person being hit. It's just that mock arm. This is obviously, for those of you watching, this is not a real arm. This is, like Ed said, it's, how accurate is this test?
There's always going to be people that are going to complaining. Just like when I did my test, people were complaining. But the point of my test was, it was Newton's third law of physics, equal and opposite reactions. I could have broken that light by placing it down on a surface and whacking it with the hammer. I could have done that, but the point is I have to create a lot of force, a lot of energy to crack the tail light, and it's not going to give you 47 pieces. And the equal and opposite effect is what you're going to see here. Yeah. Okay, so let's run this.
All right, you want sound on this, right?
Yeah. Hey, Tom, you shouldn't be eating ballistic gelatin. Okay.
Oh, for Christ's sake.
$25-mile-an-hour arm versus tail light. Here we go.
And it's got the sweatshirt type material over the arm. He had to let that go, because if he didn't let that go, he would have been injured himself.
Right on this corner piece, I hit about right here. But if I would have gotten a higher hit, it might not have busted it at all. It would have cracked it, but it wouldn't have broke that whole section off the bottom. But I've got the bottom reinforced.
They said he spent over $5,000 on this, Ed.
Yeah, well, he had to weld that metal to make this brace to put the whole thing
Side
together.
reinforced. I've got the top reinforced. Might do another one just because I've got the arm and I'm here.
So she would have to have reversed in that 25 miles an hour and gotten up to speed. Now, here's the arm. Look at the damage.
Are both bones in. Here's Buddy's arm. He's got a cracked, broken elbow. His elbow is broken. Those two bones in the forearm are completely in two. That was just from the impact. His wrist is broken. See the bone dislodged right there? That's gone. That knuckle's damaged.
And you don't have any tail light damage to the skin from the broken sections of the tail light.
Right.
And you're going to see there's just maybe one piece of damage to the sweatshirt.
Here. Those are.
I'm going to put a link in the description. Everyone go over and support this man. He spent quite a bit of money, of his own money, to do these tests. He's got dozens and dozens of videos. So I'll link it in the description right after this video is over.
Definitely from the impact, and the broken elbow is definitely from the impact, and the wrist is definitely from the impact. How broken that is. That's just two pieces. And the elbow, get in with this elbow.
See the elbow protruding through the skin, so you compound fracture.
Yeah, major
compound fracture. Contraction up for
John O'Keefe, police officer John O'Keefe, had no broken bones. Zero, folks. This was all at 24 miles an hour forward. Doesn't matter if it's forward or backwards. They did it twice, right? 2 times, it looks like, Ed. 2 separate times.
He's doing another one, yeah.
So I'm aware. My fingers are dirty. Break that chrome trim that is the strongest piece of the taillight. And damage or lack of damage of the taillight. As you can see, the taillight is not much damage. It cracked the bottom housing. Just cracked it. I got 4 big pieces off the taillight. The 4 pieces of taillight. 4
John
big,
O'Keefe, 0 broken bones. Yes, that's
pieces
true.
of taillight.
Not 47.
I thought
4.
2 would break off, but it actually got 4.
When the taillight broke, it went in the direction of travel for a short distance, not all over the front lawn.
Right.
Look how thick it is. That is a thick taillight. I actually really thought maybe 2 would break off of it, but I knew 46 or 47, however many it is today. Where you want to call them? Let's examine the shirt closely.
So this is the shirt that was all over that prosthetic.
Because everybody has seen the video. There's 1 cut mark in the shirt, and that could have been from hitting the ground.
See one right there.
I don't know, because there's a grass mark right there.
But it's not like the puncture marks that we saw on John O'Keefe's shirt.
Agreed. Very minimal.
The taillight is not going to leave two marks everywhere that there's abrasions or deep puncture from teeth wounds on John's arm. There's 1, and I don't know what it's from. It wasn't there before. But I would suspect that it was from the impact, but there's only one. There's not 47 pieces of taillight. This, combined with the fact of the other, goes up with the arm 20, put the nail, the final nail, which it did. I knew that it would do that. This is going to be the next video. This is going to be the one that's going to put the nail, the final nail in the coffin.
That's his water and salt test that he did.
Goes up with the arm.
Yeah, he attached that to the back of his vehicle and drove around. And this is after, I think, a shorter distance than what Karen's SUV Lexus was driven. And this is all the salt marks that was put up onto this part. We didn't see anything. That piece of evidence that was shown in court today and other days was pristine. There was no salt marks or anything anywhere. It looked like it was actually washed in a car wash. So sus like a mofo, Ed. That's
Yeah, let's show him on the scale.
Oh yeah.
If you go over to his site, please tell him we sent you. All right.
Absolutely.
Give this man support.
Yeah. I'm going to link it in the description. This one's pretty good.
Tail light to do another test, and this is going to be it. Told you this lens is extremely thick. And up here on this corner on Karen's, it's all busted out. But the SUV comes all the way up and around this. How could the back of this thick housing be busted out? See how much force this thing will take and not crack. Let me put as much weight as I can without hurting myself. So here we go.
This guy gets on it.
That's my whole body weight.
240 pounds of his body weight on that lens on top of the scale, and it doesn't crack. Watch how he balances himself on this thing.
That's over my body weight. Nothing. Scratched it a little. Yeah, it definitely scratched it where it found him. But it didn't break it. Got a towel on because there's a lot of point parts in the back of this. Watch this. Let's get it. 230, 39, 37. And I'm rolling it. And it's not breaking.
I love this guy. I'd like to have him on the show with us.
Yeah, 100%.
Everybody go over and subscribe to his channel. I have it here. As you guys can see, we're subscribed. So make sure you hit all for your notification. It's BN Trouble 31. He's got 6,200 subscribers. He should have 10,000 easy, maybe 20,000. This guy is, I mean, let's look at how many of look at how many videos he has. This is all on Karen Reed. Look at this.
No, for this at least 500.
Wow. All right. 2 hours and 3 minutes. Ed, is there anything we missed here?
No, I think we got it all. Let's see what happens on day 2 of her testimony tomorrow.
She will be back on the stand tomorrow. So look for us to do a debrief tomorrow night. I want to try to consolidate these. And if I didn't have the snafu early on with the audio, we would have gotten through it. But let's go to the chat and the super chats. I want to first thank Linda for the generous super chat. She says, I hope they find her not guilty. And then she sues the state, the police, and every one of the Alberts and the friends who lied about her. Absolutely. I mean, she will be able to go after people civilly. That's for sure. We covered this super chat. Thank you for your generosity. Lawyer Liv, thank you for becoming a new member. Tamara Combs, thank you for becoming a new member. Darkborn sends in 5 and says she was less of a forensic examiner than a street cop would do in a cursory examination before calling out the crime scene investigators. I don't know, Ed, what would, I mean, if you had to rate her so far, I mean, she didn't do a lot of things that should have been done, but she acknowledged that the red solo cups were not anything that she's ever seen.
Yeah.
But she would not acknowledge her mistake, and that is a bad thing.
Yeah,
That's a bad thing.
her choice of just doing one sample out of 6. Because, again, she was being influenced by what she was told.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jillian says, member for 1 month. Ed Ron, does the LED taillight make sense? No. Again, these are from earlier in the show. So, Etta, thank you for the $4.99 super sticker. We appreciate you. DB, $10. Thank you for the super chat. Absolutely love and respect Ron and Ed. Plus, this channel has the best chatters and moderators, putting the cherry on top. Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We practice CPR here. Courtesy, professionalism, and respect.
There you go. CPR. That's from the NYPD. Thank you for the $5. I'm Cora and not Chloe. David Reese. I'm so happy someone acknowledged the difference between a theory and a hypothesis.
Yeah, they don't seem to understand that, you know. And that's another thing too, folks. When Sergeant Yuri got on the stand there, and he said, well, you know, English is my third language. Well, the word theory is found in Ukrainian and Russian. And it has the same definition in Ukrainian and Russian as it does in English.
Yes. I got a message for Sergeant Bukaki.
Pardon my French, but you're an asshole.
Thank you, Cameron. All right, Joe, thank you for the 5. When they picked up the car, don't they inspect the car before loading it? No, apparently not. Why didn't they find the glass when picking it up? How did the glass stay there for all of the distance? And I spelled it out here on paper. I wrote it out. That vehicle traveled from 34 Fairview back to 1 Meadows, then to Jen to pick her up, Jen McCabe's, and then back to 34 Fairview, and then back to 1 Meadows, and then they confiscated it and brought it to Canton PD.
No,
What?
It was a little different route, but
whatever.
The point is, it traveled a lot.
Right. Those were all the places it went to. It traveled all of those different spots, and 1 hair, and now we know 1 piece of glass managed to stay on that vehicle miraculously. It just doesn't make sense.
1 hair that moved while it was in the garage while they were photographing it.
Yeah, it's bullshit. Farmer white hair. Yes. Thank you for the 2. That half-foot piece caused all that damage. Amy, thank you for becoming a new member. Is that Leon? Thank you for becoming a new member. I can't see it. Gold Dust Woman, thank you for becoming a new member. Catherine, thank you for becoming a new member. More super chats from I Am Cora. $2, fucking believable.
Unfuckably believable.
Unbelievable, yes.
There's fuckery afoot here.
Tina, thank you for the Canadian. If Kerry Roberts testified that only 1 small piece of Karen's taillight was missing, how is it possible that they then found several pieces of it on the lawn? In my opinion, they were planted. It seems that way.
Dun, dun.
Miss Lily YC, thank you so much for the 5. Thank you for your service. Wouldn't there be skin on the glass if Police Officer John O'Keefe really got injured by that taillight?
If that's what went through the shirt and created those injuries and wounds on his arms, you would think, but that's not the case because it wasn't the I'm having a brain fart. It wasn't the lens of the taillight
of the SUV, the Lexus. Reality check. Thank you for the 5. Could you please post a small clip of Ed stating the clothing should have been dried out at the lab? People need to realize this. We'll upload a short of that Ed,
Well,
you
it's
said
in our previous show, yes.
in a couple of shows before. We will reality check. Whiskey Brand, thank you for becoming a member. Das Libra, thank you so much for the 10 super sticker. Reality check back at it with the 5. Also, a small clip with how the side should have been microscopically tested.
Well, yes, we talked about it, but if you really want to see how it's done, buy my book.
There you go. Jen, thank you for the 20. Ed, can you use luminol on the outside of the vehicle? You answered that. Yes.
I did.
Becky, thanks for being a member for 34 months. Can they pass out cough drops for the trial? Yeah, people coughing all over the place. There's many people. It's public, not public, but there's a lot of people in that small little courtroom. So
but I got to tell you this, that some of these coughs are timed very strangely for me when certain testimony is being said, and then you can't hear it.
Bullshit. Yes. Muse, thank you for the 10. You should take a look at.
Hey.
There we go. We did. We just played it. He spent about $5,000 doing tests about the taillight, and even points out the potential video altering. It's well done. Yes, we agree with you. Therefore, we played it. Reality check again with the 2. Ed, at least be a consultant for the defense. He can't.
Yeah, I do consultancy work. I do that. I have been hired as a consultant for defense and prosecutors and so forth. But
Erin, thanks for being a member for 6 months. She said, I want to say thank you to you, DutyRon and Ed Wallace. Well, we appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you for another 5 about those videos. Attorney Madeline Little suggested them to her stream. So if she thought they were good, I have complete faith in her judgment. I guess they're talking about BN trouble.
Yeah.
So there you have it. Valentine Bibley, thank you for being a new member, becoming a new member. I am Cora is back at it again. Is English her third language? Thank you. Carter's $5. Is it standard for evidence collection to be months later from the date? It looks like it's sat for a while.
The analysis. And then the multiple collections, because the multiple searches missed evidence.
Darkborn says sends in a 10 and said thank you for that. I love how Ed is wearing his gloves while he is tearing his analysis of the evidence apart. Massachusetts State Police should hire Ed to come teach. How's it supposed to be done?
I just want to make sure I keep my stuff clean
and sterile. Yeah. Ed, put your hands up. Look at that. The whole show he's wearing
hands up, baby, hands up. Give me your.
Wow. Kristen, thank you for becoming a YouTube member. Dawn Brown, thank you for becoming a new member. Amy, good to see you, Amy. She says it's disgusting. Thank you for the 10. Disgusting displaying the shirt, sweatshirt in plexiglass as if you're going to hang it like it's your favorite player's jersey.
Yeah, I would like to question who came up with that and why.
Yeah.
And how long has it been like that? Because it wasn't like that the last trial.
Sickening. Amy sends in 5 again. At Ed, even the TV shows like CSI, NYPD use tape. Love you both. We love you back. Yes. David, thank you for the $1. We appreciate it. Thank you for gifting Amy Lou a 1 DutyRon membership. Summer Girl, thanks for the 5. What about Bev calling the defense an asshole? Did she do that? She did.
We don't know. I mean, there was something that was said that started off like ass. I mean, it could have been ask, or it could have been an open mic where somebody said asshole.
Yeah. Hold on. Where is it?
Pardon my French, but you're an asshole.
There you go, Auntie Bev. All right, so let's go to the chat because got to grab a couple of questions. Hashtag Ed, hashtag DutyRon. Let's get some questions from the audience. Hi, Angela. Good to see you. Ed, maybe you should bring back your swinging.
You're singing.
Singing, right? Singing.
I don't swing. That's the Long Island serial killer. I don't do that shit. Okay.
Rex Sherman. Bring your singing back. We haven't heard you sing in a really long time. Bagpipes. LOL. Thank you, Black Rose. Oh, I want to say thank you to the mods, obviously, for keeping the chat classy. It's really great that the mods are here. The Tom Gully Show. Visit Scenic Canton, Massachusetts, home of the plexiglass sandwich. It's a good one, Tom. Thank you. A bunch of streamers are discussing the coughing, especially during certain testimony. We're really focused on the evidence. The coughing is annoying. That's for sure. That is for sure. All right, let's get up to date on the mic on the chat, because I want to be fair and get to everybody in the chat. People are laughing with us. Miranda says snowblowers, plexiglass, bad videos, horrible pictures, no reports, horrible videos, not guilty.
Yeah, we say it time and time again, folks. If these guys would have walked into any of the New York City District Attorney's office and presented this case, wanting to go to a grand jury and indict, Karen Reed down here, they would have laughed them out of the District Attorney's office.
Agreed, wholeheartedly. They would have been kicked out. Get the hell out. Hashtag Ed from Karen Griswold. Good to see you, Karen. Thank you for being here. Ed, the dried watermarks behind the hair apparent. Does that show the hair was placed after the water dried?
Very good, Karen. Okay, so in the sequencing, all right, watermark first, hair second.
Bingo.
Yahtzee.
Don't pass go.
No.
Crime sleuthing.
Wait a minute.
Whoa.
Karen. It was Karen, right?
Yeah, Griswold.
Yeah. Send her a book.
Karen, send me an email. You get a signed copy of Ed Wallace's Crime Scene paperback, not the hardcover, but I have one. Send me a message on DutyRon.com and with your address. Can't be a P.O. box. It's got to be an address. And I will mail you out as per Ed. You get a book. Jillian, thank you. She says, hashtag Ed, taillight was white light coming from red LEDs.
If you want to look about that, go to our friend that we just showed you. He has numerous videos about how the lights with an unbroken taillight and with a broken taillight would fluoresce. So take a look at that.
All right. Crime Sleuthin is in the chat. Hi, Crime Sleuthin. I know why the plexiglass at DutyRon in the TR1 shirt and sweatshirt were in trial one, the sweat and sweatshirt were in bags. I remember seeing that. 437 and 438. AJ proved sweatshirt was moved, bag signed by Proctor. So to avoid all that, they got rid of the bags entirely. So it deflects away from Proctor. Sometimes they're mentioning Proctor, like we heard the state, we heard the Commonwealth today say to our lab gal, he mentioned Proctor by name. So I don't know.
Ron, do you have my book there?
I don't. I do. Wait.
Yeah, could you show it? It's called Crime Scene Investigation. It's the 5th edition, I believe.
Who's asking about it? I have it on Amazon and on our website.
Bliss Fluorescence.
I moved it. Hold
on.
on.
You can look it up on Amazon.com.
Yeah, I showed it on the last video. And it's on our website and it's on Amazon, on my Amazon store. You can go over there and buy it. Ed, Sharon is asking for the bagpipes somewhere down the line. We can't do it today, though.
Okay.
Numbers UM, and thank you so very much.
Would you like the clarinet and the saxophone too?
All right, let's wrap this up. Everybody wants to get the book. As a matter of fact, guess what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna link the book in the description of this video after, give me about 15 minutes, and I'll link it in the description on how to purchase it. And if anybody wants to go and get this book, I highly recommend it because I have the hardcover and I have 2 different volumes of his books. And, again, Ed and I are going to get together this weekend. I think we're going to get some pizza, right, Ed?
Oh, yeah.
Grab some pizza. So Ed and I are going to be hanging out. Maybe we'll do a little impromptu live stream from the pizza place.
Now, I have 4 books, people, not just one. I have 4 different books. They're all crime scene forensic related books.
Ed, do you get more money if I buy off the website versus Amazon? Get it? It's on Amazon. My website has a link to our Amazon store. So you could buy it through going to DutyRon.com or just clicking on the link that I'll post in the description here, and then I'll bring you to the Amazon site to get the book.
I can tell you folks, as an author, there's no money in textbooks. There's money in writing fiction. Okay, not my kind of textbooks. Our textbooks, we make pennies on the dollar.
Ed, how about this? When we hit, we're at 488,000, so we're like close to 500. When we hit 500,000, I will buy 10 of those books. I'll personally buy 10 of the books, and Ed, you can sign them, and we'll do a giveaway.
Sounds good.
So yeah, for those of you who maybe can't afford it or don't want to spend the money to get the book, I'm gonna be giving 10 of them away when we hit 500, 500,000 subscribers. Which
You can also buy a digital copy. It's cheaper.
My God, Ed.
Oh, gnarly.
You're the best, Ed.
Spicoli. Mr. Spicoli.
All right.
What are you, on drugs?
What are you people on? Dope? Where is that?
Mr. Hand.
I have that. There it is.
What are you people? On dope?
All right. So people like holding books, Julia says, and BB2 is here. All right. Really quick, guys. Ed and I asked if you could just take a minute to give this video a thumbs up. Leave us a comment down below in the comment section. Also share onto your social media platform if you have one, even if it's small, even if, you don't share often. Share the video, like them, subscribe, and tell your friends about us. I got people in my warehouse. I'm the security director at an Amazon affiliate, and I am going around to everybody and saying, hey, are you watching the Karen Reed trial? Well, Ed and I are doing recaps at night. So I got people from the warehouse watching. So hello, people from the warehouse.
Hello, peeps.
Yep, peeps. Ed, you've been to the warehouse.
Yes,
So next time when you go, Ed, you're going to have to be shaking hands and signing autographs because you now are a star in the warehouse. So the Tom Gully Show says, I'm waiting for Law Dogs, the Ron and Ed story. Ministries on Netflix. George Clooney.
Miniseries on Netflix.
Yeah. In negotiations right now.
I don't know about those two, but anyhow.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you all for being here. I want to thank the replay viewers, the moderators, the super chatters, the folks who gifted away memberships and that show up nightly. Leave us comments. We love to interact in the comment section after the live's over. It's a way for you to communicate with Ed and I. So leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. We're not perfect. We don't claim to be. We get stuff wrong sometimes. And when we do, we admit to it. So please understand that this is not a produced production. This is just two guys who are retired NYPD detectives. Ed's got a lot of knowledge. He's sharing them. He's got those gloves on. Michelle Lynn, thank you for the 10 super sticker. Appreciate it. Summer Girl, thank you. What about Bev? Yep. Okay, now we're done. So I want to thank everybody on behalf of Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace. I wish you guys good evening. We'll be back at it at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning Eastern time. Again, John O'Keefe, police officer John O'Keefe, he is the victim here in this. He lost his life. We don't know what happened to him. I don't know if we'll ever know. I send strength, prayers, and positive vibes to his family, his children, his kids that he was looking after he took on from when his sister passed, and then her husband tragically passed of a heart attack afterwards. I want to thank you all for being here. And again, keep the victim and their families at the forefront, because that's what this is about. Ed, I know you always say something at the end of these things.
Amen, Ron. Amen. Folks, thanks for being here. I know you can get your true crime fix anywhere you like on the internet. So thanks for sharing your time with us and spreading the word about us. Remember, when you're out there, folks, no matter where you are with your work, family, doesn't matter. Stay safe, stay prepared, and watch your six.
Amen to that, brother. Good night from New York, and we'll see you guys all soon. Peace and love.